Okay, today we're going to do solving equations with variables on both sides. The first thing to remember about this is the idea of balance. What I do to one side, I have to do to the other. So if you need to, pause this video and make sure you copy all these notes down in your notebook. First thing, or first question right here, I went ahead and wrote is 6r plus 7 equals 13 plus 7r. I went ahead and drew my line so that I can show that I have two different sides. It helps me to remember I'm balancing. When these equations are smaller like this, it's not a big deal, but the second they start getting bigger, things can be a little bit more confusing, especially if we possibly have three sides, which will happen. All right, so my first clue is to always get get my variables to the side that has the most. So my variables are 6r and 7r. The variables that are the most are the 7r's. What I mean by the most variables, it's the variables like this, there's 7, there's 6 there. Obviously, if I had, 12 on this side, that'd be more. But I'm going to go with the 7. So I need to cancel out these 6r's. To cancel out 6r's, if they're positive, I'm going to subtract them. Because no matter what r is, if I have 6 of them and then I take away 6 of them, I have no other r's. So they cancel out. Now, that idea of balance, what I do to one side, I do to the other, so I need to subtract 6r's here. Notice I put that right below the r's. I did not put it below the 13. It is, going back to those combining like terms, I have to do the right thing. I have to put it underneath the right thing. I cannot combine it with that 13. Okay, so now 7r's minus 6r's is just 1r. So I'm going to write it like that. I don't need a 1 coefficient. Now I'm going to bring everything else down. My 7, my 13, and my plus. We're down to a simple one-step equation. I'm going to get r by itself by subtracting 13 from both sides. Those cancel out. R equals -6. Pretty simple. Now I'm going to do a little bit more of a complex one for you. This one has some more steps in it. You've done all these steps prior. This is just kind of combining all these steps. First thing is the distributive property. I'm going to distribute the 7. So 7 times 5 is going to give me 35x's. 7 times a -4 is going to give me a -28. Now this -1 does not get the distributive property to it, but I do have to bring it down still. And then I'm going to bring down my 14 minus 8x. Make sure you copy all this down. Now, I'm going to combine my like terms on this side. I have a -28 and a -1, so that's technically -29. So I have 35x's minus 29, and I'm going to bring these down again, 14 minus 8x. So far I've done two steps. I've had to distribute and combine like terms. Now, to get the x's to the side with the most, which is our most recent step we've been talking about, I'm going to look which side has the most, 35x's or -8. I think this one's pretty obvious. It's 35. So to cancel out the -8x's, I'm going to add 8x's to both sides. And I do that where I line up my x's. Now, these cancel out. 35x's and 8x's ends up being 43x's. I bring down my -29 and my 14. Now I'm down to a two-step equation. I'm going to get rid of my -29 by adding 29 to both sides, to where I get 43x equals 43. And then I divide by 43 on both sides, cancel that out, and I get x equals 1. So that's a little bit lengthier. I first had to distribute, then I combined like terms to get my -29, got my variables to the side with the most, and then I was down to a two-step, just getting my x by itself. Now I'm going to show you a little bit of a trickier problem, throwing a little bit of geometry in with our algebra. What is the perimeter of the square? When you see problems like this, the first thing you have to think about is this idea. It says it's a square. We should know the properties of our square tell us that all the sides are the same. So I know perimeter says I add up all the outsides, but if you notice, we've been dealing with equations. I have to have something equal to something else. So when I set up this equation, I know that 3x plus 8 is equal to 5x. These are the same. Now I can go back and find out what the perimeter is later, but I at least need to solve for x. So I'm going to say 3x plus 8 is equal to 5x. Pretty simple. Now I'm going to draw my line. The x's that have the most are 5, so I'm going to cancel out these 3 x's. So I'm left with 8 equals 2 x's. And then I divide by 2 on both sides to get that x equals 4. Now I'm obviously not done because it didn't say solve for x. It said find the perimeter of the square. So if I was to fill that in, it does not matter which one I fill it in, I should get the same answer. 5 times 4 is going to give me 20. 3 times 4 is 12, plus 8 is 20. My perimeter, though, if this is 20, then this is 20, and this is 20, and this is 20, because it's a square, would be 4 times 20, which is going to give me 80. So my perimeter would be 80 units. Sometimes you'll get a tricky one like that.